Application of Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act to TikTok. By the authority invested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1, Policy. The Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act regulates foreign adversary controlled applications, specifically those operated by TikTok and any other subsidiary of its China-based parent company, ByteDance Limited, on national security grounds. Section 2A of the Act prohibits entities from distributing, maintaining, or updating certain defined foreign adversary controlled applications within the territory of the United States by providing a services for such distribution, maintenance, or updates by means of an online mobile application store or other marketplace, or B, internet hosting services to enable the distribution, maintenance, or updating of such applications. Section 2G of the Act defines foreign adversary controlled application to include websites, desktop applications, mobile applications, and augmented or immersive technology applications operated directly or indirectly by ByteDance Limited or TikTok. Under Section 2A of the Act, the prohibitions of the Act with respect to these entities became effective on January 19, 2025. I have the unique constitutional responsibility for the national security of the United States, the conduct of foreign policy, and other executive functions. To fulfill those responsibilities, I intend to consult with my advisors, including the heads of relevant departments and agencies, on the national security concerns posed by TikTok, and to pursue a resolution that protects national security while saving a platform used by 170 million Americans. My administration must also review sensitive intelligence related to those concerns and evaluate the sufficiency of mitigation measures TikTok has taken to date. The unfortunate timing of Section 2A of the Act, one day before I took office as the 47th President of the United States, interferes with my ability to assess the national security and foreign policy implications of the Act's prohibitions before they take effect. This timing also interferes with my ability to negotiate a resolution to avoid an abrupt shutdown of the TikTok platform while addressing national security concerns. Accordingly, I am instructing the Attorney General to not to take any action to enforce the Act for a period of 75 days from today, to allow my administration an opportunity to determine the appropriate course forward in an orderly way that protects national security while avoiding an abrupt shutdown of a communications platform used by millions of Americans. Section 2, Action. I hereby order the Attorney General not to take any action on behalf of the United States to enforce the Act for 75 days from the date of this order, to permit my administration an opportunity to determine the appropriate course of action with respect to TikTok. During this period, the Department of Justice shall take no action to enforce the Act or impose any penalties against any entity for any non-compliance with the Act, including for distributing, maintaining, or updating, or enabling the distribution, maintenance, or updating of any foreign adversary-controlled application as defined in the Act. In light of this direction, even after the expiration of the above specified period, the Department of Justice shall not take any action to enforce the Act or impose any penalties against any entity for any conduct that occurred during the above specified period or any period prior to the issuance of this order, including the period of time from January 19th, 2025 to the signing of this order. B. Because of the national security interests at stake, and because Section 2D of the Act vests authority for investigations and enforcement of the Act only in the Attorney General, attempted enforcement by the states or private parties represents an encroachment on the powers of the executive. The Attorney General shall exercise all available authority to preserve and defend the executive's exclusive authority to enforce the Act. Section 3, General Provisions. All right, and that was application of Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act to TikTok. All right, last one on the fourth page. Withdrawing the United States from the World Health Organization. By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered, Section 1, purpose. The United States noticed its withdrawal from the World Health Organization in 2020 due to the organization's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic that arose out of Wuhan, China, and other global health crises, its failures to adopt urgently needed reforms, and its inability to demonstrate independence from the inappropriate political influence of WHO member states. In addition, the WHO continues to demand unfairly onerous payments from the United States, far out of proportion with other countries' assessed payments. China, with a population of 1.4 billion, has 300% of the population of the United States, yet contributes nearly 90% less to the WHO. Section 2, actions. The United States intends to withdraw from the WHO. The presidential letter to the Secretary General of the United Nations, signed on January 20th, 2021, that retracted the United States July 6, 2020 notification of withdrawal is revoked. B. Executive Order 13987 of January 25, 2021, organizing and mobilizing the United States government to provide a unified and effective response to combat COVID-19 and to provide United States leadership on global health and security is revoked. C. The Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs shall establish directorates in coordinating mechanisms within the National Security Council apparatus as he deems necessary and appropriate to safeguard public health and fortify biosecurity. The Secretary of State and the Director of the Office of Management and Budget shall take appropriate measures with all practicable speed to 1. Pause the future transfer of any United States government funds, support, or resources to the WHO. 2. Recall and reassign United States government personnel or contractors working in any capacity with the WHO. And 3. Identify credible and transparent United States and international partners to assume necessary activities previously undertaken by the WHO. E. The Director of the White House Office of Pandemic Preparedness and Response Policy shall review, rescind, and replace the 2024 U.S. Global Health Security Strategy as soon as possible, as practicable. Section 3. Notification. The Secretary of State shall immediately inform the Secretary General of the United Nations, any other applicable depositary, and the leadership of the WHO of the withdrawal. Section 4. Global System Negotiations. While withdrawal is in process, the Secretary of State will cease negotiations on the WHO Pandemic Agreement and the amendments to the International Health Regulations, and actions taken to effectuate such agreement and amendments will have no binding force on the United States. Section 5, General Provisions. We are on restoring accountability to a policy influencing positions within the federal workforce. By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Sections 3301, 3302, and 7511 of Title V United States Code, it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1, Purpose. Article 2 of the United States Constitution vests the President with the sole and exclusive authority over the executive branch, including the authority to manage the federal workforce to ensure effective execution of federal law. A critical aspect of this executive function is the responsibility to maintain professionalism and accountability within the civil service. This accountability is sorely lacking today. Only 41% of civil service supervisors are confident that they can remove an employee who engaged in subordination or serious misconduct. Even fewer supervisors, 26%, are confident that they can remove an employee for poor performance. Accountability is essential for all federal employees, but it is especially important for those who are in policy influencing positions. These personnel are entrusted to shape and implement actions that have a significant impact on all Americans. Any power that they have is delegated by the president, and they must be accountable to the president, who is the only member of the executive branch, other than the vice president, elected and directly accountable to the American people. In recent years, however, there have been numerous and well-documented cases of career federal employees resisting and undermining the policies and directives of their executive leadership. Principles of good administration, therefore, necessitate action to restore accountability to the career civil service, beginning with positions of a confidential, policy-determining, policy-making, or policy-advocating character. Section 2, Reinstatement of Prior Administration Policy, Executive Order 13957 of October 21st, 2020, creating Schedule F in the accepted service, is hereby immediately reinstated with full force and effect, subject to the amendments described in Section 3 of this order, provided that the date of this order shall be treated as the date of Executive Order 13957. Section 3, Amendments to Prior Administration Policy. Executive Order 13957 is amended as follows. A. Replace the letter F throughout when used to designate an accepted service schedule with the words policy/career. B. In Section 1, remove the text between the words make necessary in the 7th paragraph and accepting such positions in the 8th paragraph, and 2. Insert the text competitive service and the immediately before the words adverse action procedures in the 8th paragraph. C. In Section 4AI, replace the word positions with the words career positions in the final paragraph. D. In Section 4BI, add the text providing for the application of Civil Service Rule 6.3A to schedule policy/career positions, and after the words as appropriate. E. In Section 5, insert the words recommended that the President immediately after the words petition the Director to in subsection AI. 2. Insert the following text at the end of subsection C. 6. Directly or indirectly supervising employees in schedule policy/career positions, or 7. Duties that the Director otherwise indicates may be appropriate for inclusion in schedule policy/career. And 3. Amend subsection D to read, the Director shall promptly recommend to the President which positions should be placed in schedule policy/career. F. In Section 6, I. Designate the existing text as new subsection A. 2. Insert a new subsection B that reads, B. Employees in or applicants for scheduled policy/career positions are not required to personally or politically support the current president or the policies of the current administration. They are required to faithfully implement administration policies to the best of their ability, consistent with their constitutional oath and the vesting of executive authority solely in the president. Failure to do so is grounds for dismissal. Section 4, Confirming Regulatory Changes. The Director of the Office of Personnel Management shall promptly amend the Civil Service Regulations to rescind all changes made by the final rule of April 9th, 2024, upholding civil service protections and merit system principles, 89 Federal Regulation 24982, that impede the proposes of or would otherwise affect the implementation of Executive Order 13957 until such rescissions are effectuated, including the resolution of any judicial review. 5 CFR Part 302 Subpart F5 CFR 210.102B3 and 5 CFR 210.102B4 shall be held inoperative and without effect. Section 5. Additional positions for consideration. Within 30 days of this date of this order, the Director shall, after consultation with the Executive Office of the President, issue guidance about additional categories of positions that executive departments and agencies should consider recommending for schedule, policy/career. Section 6. Revocation. Executive Order 14003 of January 22nd, 2021, protecting the federal workforce is hereby revoked, and any rules, regulations, guidance, or other agency policies effectuated under Executive Order 14003 shall not be enforced. The heads of each executive department and agency shall review and identify existing agency actions related to or arising under Section 3E, V, and 3F of Executive Order 14003 relating to suspending, revising, or rescinding revisions to discipline and unacceptable performance policies, and as soon as practicable, suspend, revise, or rescind such actions identified in the review. Section 7, General Provisions. Alright, and that was restoring accountability to policy influencing positions within the federal workforce. Now we have holding former government officials accountable for election interference and improper disclosure of sensitive governmental information. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1, Purpose. In the closing weeks of the 2020 presidential campaign, at least 51 former intelligence officials coordinated with the Biden campaign to issue a letter discrediting the reporting that Joseph R. Biden's son had abandoned his laptop at a computer repair business. Signatories of the letter falsely suggested that the news story was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. Before being issued, the letter was sent to the CIA Pre-Publication Classification Review Board, the body typically assigned to formally evaluate the sensitive nature of documents prior to publication. Senior CIA officials were made aware of the contents of the letter, and multiple signatories held clearances at the time and maintained ongoing contractual relationships with the CIA. Federal policy makers must be able to rely on analysis conducted by the intelligence community and be confident that it is accurate, crafted with professionalism, and free from politically motivated engineering to affect political outcomes in the United States. The signatories willfully weaponize the gravitas of the intelligence community to manipulate the political process and undermine our democratic institutions. This fabrication of the imprimatur of the intelligence community to suppress information essential to the American people during a presidential election is an egregious breach of trust reminiscent of a third world country, and now the faith of Americans and all other patriotic intelligence professionals who are sworn to protect the nation have been imperiled. National security is also damaged by the publication of classified information. Former National Security Advisor John R. Bolton published a memoir for monetary gain after he was terminated from his White House position in 2019. The book was rife with sensitive information drawn from his time in government. The memoir's reckless treatment of sensitive information undermined the ability of future presidents to request and obtain candid advice on matters of national security from their staff. Publication also created a grave risk that classified material was publicly exposed. To remedy these abuses of the public trust, this order directs the revocation of any active or current security clearances held by 1. The former intelligence officials who engaged in misleading and inappropriate political coordination with the 2020 Biden presidential campaign, and 2. John R. Bolton. Section 2, Policy A. It is the policy of the United States to ensure that the intelligence community not be engaged in partisan politics or otherwise used by a U.S. political campaign for electioneering purposes. The term intelligence community has the meaning given the term in Section 3003 of Title 50, United States Code. B. It is the policy of the United States that individuals who hold government-issued security clearances should not use their clearance status to influence U.S. elections. C. It is the policy of the United States that classified information not be publicly disclosed in memoirs, especially those published for personal monetary gain. Section 3. Implementation. A. Effective immediately, the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, shall revoke any current or active clearances held by the following individuals. 1. James R. Clapper, Jr. 2. Michael V. Hayden. 3. Leon E. Panetta. 4. John O. Brennan. 5. C. Thomas Fingar. 6. Richard H. Leggett Jr. 7. John E. McLaughlin. 8. Michael J. Morrell. 9. Michael G. Vickers. 10. Douglas H. Wise. 11. Nicholas J. Rasmussen. 12. Russell L. Travers. 13. Andrew Lapeman. 14. John H. Mosman. 15. Larry Pfeiffer. 16. Jeremy B. Bash. 17. Rodney Snyder. 18. Glenn S. Gerstle. 19. David B. Buckley. 20. Nada G. Bacos. 21. James B. Bruce. 22. David S. Carians. 23. Janice Carians. 24. Paul R. Colby. 25. Peter L. Corsel. 26. Roger Z. George. 27. Stephen L. Hall. 28. Kent Harrington. 29. Don Hepburn. 30. Timothy D. Kilborn. 31. Ronald A. Marks. 32. Jonna H. Mendez. 33. Emil Nakle. 34. Gerald A. O'Shea. 35. David Priest. 36. Pamela Persley. 37. Mark Polymeropoulos. 38. Chris Savos. 39. Nick Shapiro. 40. John Cipher. 41. Stephen B. Slick. 42. Cynthia Strand. 43. Greg Tarbell. 44. David Terry. 45. Gregory F. Treverton. 46. John D. Tullius. 47. David A. Vanell. 48. Winston P. Wiley. 49. Kristen Wood. 50. John R. Bolton. 2 signatories, Patty Patricia A. Brandmeier and Brett Davis, are deceased. B. Within 90 days of this order, the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, shall submit a report to the President through the National Security Advisor that details 1. Any additional inappropriate activity that occurred within the intelligence community by anyone contacted by the intelligence community or by anyone who held a security clearance related to the letter signed by the 51 former intelligence officials. 2. Recommendations to prevent the intelligence community or anyone who works for or within it from inappropriately influencing domestic elections. And 3. Any disciplinary action, including the termination of security clearances, that should be taken against anyone who engaged in inappropriate conduct related to the letter signed by the 51 former intelligence officials. And Section 4, General Provisions. And that is it for holding former government officials accountable for election interference and improper disclosure of sensitive governmental information. Declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, I hereby proclaim America's sovereignty is under attack. Our southern border is overrun by cartels, criminal gangs, known terrorists, human traffickers, smugglers, unvetted military-age males from foreign adversaries, and illicit narcotics that harm Americans, including America. This invasion has caused widespread chaos and suffering in our country over the last 4 years. It has led to the horrific and inexcusable murders of many innocent American citizens, including women and children, at the hands of illegal aliens. Foreign criminal gangs and cartels have begun seizing control of parts of cities, attacking our most vulnerable citizens and terrorizing Americans beyond the control of local law enforcement. Cartels control vast territories just south of our southern border, effectively controlling who can and cannot travel to the United States from Mexico. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have tragically died from drug overdoses because of the illicit narcotics that have flowed across the southern border. This assault on the American people and the integrity of American sovereign borders represents a grave threat to our nation. Because of the gravity and emergency of this present danger and an imminent threat, it is necessary for the armed forces to take all appropriate action to assist the Department of Homeland Security in obtaining full operational control of the southern border. To protect the security and safety of United States citizens, to protect each of the states against invasion, and to uphold my duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, it is my responsibility as president to ensure that the illegal entry of aliens into the United States via the southern border be immediately and entirely stopped. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no more solemn duty than to protect the American people. Now, therefore, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Sections 201 and 301 of the National Emergencies Act, 50 U.S.C. 1601, hereby declare that a national emergency exists at the southern border of the United States, and that Section 12302 of Title 10 United States Code is invoked and made available, according to its terms, to the secretaries of the military departments concerned, subject to the direction of the Secretary of Defense, to provide additional authority to the Department of Defense to support the federal government's response to the emergency at the southern border. I hereby declare that this emergency requires use of the armed forces, and, in accordance with Section 301 of the National Emergency Act, 50 U.S.C. 1631, that the construction authority provided in Sections 2808 of Title 10 United States Code is invoked and made available, according to its terms, to the Secretary of Defense, and, at the discretion of the Secretary of Defense, to the Secretaries of the military departments. I hereby direct as follows. Section 1. Deployment of personnel and resources. The Secretary of Defense, or the Secretary of each relevant military department, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, shall order as many units or members of the armed forces, including the Ready Reserve and the National Guard, as the Secretary of Defense determines to be appropriate to support the activities of the Secretary of Homeland Security in obtaining complete operational control of the southern border of the United States. The Secretary of Defense shall further take all appropriate action to facilitate the operational needs of the Secretary of Homeland Security along the southern border, including through the provision of appropriate detention space, transportation, including aircraft, and other logistics services in support of civilian-controlled law enforcement operations. Section 2 of Additional Physical Barriers. The Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security shall immediately take all appropriate action consistent with law, including 10 U.S.C. 2214, to construct additional physical barriers along the southern border. To the extent possible, the Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security shall coordinate with any governor of a state that is willing to assist with the deployment of any physical infrastructure to improve operational security at the southern border. Section 3. Unmanned aerial systems. The Secretary of Transportation and the Federal Communications Commission shall, consistent with applicable law, consider waiving all applicable Federal Aviation Administration and Federal Communications Commission regulations or policies, respectively, that restrict the Department of Homeland Security's ability to counter unmanned aerial systems within 5 miles of the border. Section 4, revision of policies and strategies. The Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with the Attorney General, shall take all appropriate action consistent with law to prioritize the impedance and denial of the unauthorized physical entry of aliens across the southern border of the United States, and to ensure that use of force policies prioritize the safety and security of Department of Homeland Security personnel and of members of the armed forces. Section 5, revocation. Proclamation of 10142 of January 2021, termination of emergency with respect to the southern border of the United States and redirection of funds diverted to border wall construction is hereby revoked. Section 6, reporting requirement. Within 30 days of the date of this proclamation, the Secretary of Defense shall submit to the President through the Homeland Security Advisor a report outlining all actions taken to fulfill the requirements and objectives of this proclamation, and b, within 90 days of the date of this proclamation, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall submit a joint report to the President about the conditions at the southern border of the United States and any recommendation regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 or 1807. And Section 7, general provisions. All right. Memorandum to resolve the backlog of security clearances for Executive Office of the President personnel. January 20th, 2025. Memorandum to the White House Counsel. Subject: Memorandum to resolve the backlog of security clearances for Executive Office of the President personnel. The Executive Office of the President requires qualified and trusted personnel to execute its mandate on behalf of the American people. There is a backlog created by the Biden administration in the processing of security clearances of individuals hired to work in the Executive Office of the President. Because of this backlog and the bureaucratic process and broken security clearance process, individuals who have not timely received the appropriate clearances are ineligible for access to the White House complex infrastructure and technology, and are therefore unable to perform the duties for which they were hired. This is unacceptable. Therefore, by the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, I hereby order: 1. The White House Counsel to provide the White House Security Office an acting chief security officer with a list of personnel that are hereby immediately granted interim top secret / sensitive compartmented information security clearances for a period not to exceed 6 months. And 2, that these individuals shall be immediately granted access to the facilities and technology necessary to perform the duties of the office to which they have been hired. And 3, the White House Counsel, as my designee, may supplement this list as necessary. And 4, the White House Counsel, as my designee, shall have the authority to revoke the interim clearance of any individual as necessary. That was the memorandum to resolve the backlog of security clearances for Executive Office of the President personnel.